Hi, hello world. This video is the first in a sequence asking the question, how do we revolutionize social media? I mean, really revolutionize social media. Not just installing a new app, migrating to a new platform, but really do it decentrally and completely independently. How can you get independent and everyone can get independent? The idea is to collaboratively create an information mycelium. A mycelium is the network that fungi create in order to transport different molecules, nutrients and toxins out of the organism. So this video is the first streaming of my working with this kind of information, how information can be written as plain text, and notes can be written as plain texts, but basically every data item can be represented by text. Also, I will introduce in this first streaming the collaborative decentral versioning using the software Git. Decentral versioning is important because we are many people and we need to work on text independently from each other and then merge all our changes. You might want to learn the software I use that you see me typing here, which is recommended. I mean, obviously I recommend it because I use it. It's all open source and it's powerful, but it has in part a tough learning curve in the beginning, especially the text editor Emacs that you see me writing in here. Emacs is optional. It's a powerful tool. It's one of the most powerful text editors ever created. It's more or less a full operating system based in a text editor, but it's not a requirement, as I said, so you can alternatively use any text editor that comes to mind. You can request a tutorial down in the comments for a text editor that you use and want to use. Two suggestions are Notepad++ or Atom, especially when you're on Windows. The important part is that text needs to stick to a certain format. What you see me writing here is orgmode. It's a markup format for text files. That means you can define parts of the text to be written in bold or in italics. Also the named lists separated with a dash and then the name of the item and then the colon and then the content of the item, or above the enumeration, first information notes texts and second collaborative decentral versioning. These are parts of the orgmode format. Orgmode initially was for the Emacs editor, the mother of all editors, but basically you can use it with any text editor. It is a standardized format and there will be a separate video detailing some of the orgmode features. The important part, the most important, and basically the only really required part for the information mycelium is Git. Git is a software for decentral versioning and collaborative text editing. What does that mean? That means that in an environment where you are many thousands of people writing on text files like this file here, which is called orgit.org in the directory and information mycel, when you have many people writing text files simultaneously, basically you can use Git to organize all the work and to consolidate all the work. So before we look into the ideas of the information mycelium, I will show you a little bit about Git and what features we are absolutely essential to use in order to consolidate the writings of information of an arbitrary number, really, of people that are involved. So let me show you Git a bit. Git is a software by which we are using the work of the great Linus Torvalds. So standing on the shoulders of this giant means in this case that we are using a software he wrote to alleviate the problems of the development in the Linux kernel. The Linux kernel is a complicated piece of software, and many people, thousands actually, are writing on parts for this software, are fixing bugs or adding new features. And Linus Torvalds had the problem that he needed a software to integrate all those changes. Actually, he had a burnout shortly before he wrote Git, because he was initially doing it by mail. So people were sending him mails with the changes, and he needed to integrate all those changes of many thousands of people's. So Git is a software that can integrate the collaboration of thousands of authors with moderation and with signatures even. So you have a cryptographic guarantee that certain changes are acknowledged by a certain author, for example, and things like that. Overall, Git is well established. It's used by hundreds of thousands of people, developers. It's the de facto standard for software development. And it's quite simple today to use. So first, initially, we need to create a Git repository. A Git repository is basically a directory tree that is versioned with Git, so a directory tree where you can work with other people on the files asynchronously. A little bit like a Dropbox folder. So Git init makes any directory on your computer a Git repository. It's that simple. So Git init, what the fuck happened here? I just executed Git init in the directory of the file that I'm currently working on. So I created a Git repository in the information mycel.git directory. If you only know Windows, you're used to control your computer with a mouse. So let's make a short detour about controlling your computer and a little bit of advertisement for the Emacs editor. Eben Moglen, a great guy, he drafted the GNU public license and did some consulting work and wrote about the mouse, that this is the invention of the caveman interface. You point and you grunt. He did that in a review of the first prototype of the mouse. I think actually, I like the quote. I like it quite a lot actually, but I think it's dishonoring our caveman ancestors, because our caveman ancestors not really pointed and grunted. Our caveman ancestors sat around the fireplace and were chatting and talking and explaining the world how they see it and what they experienced throughout the day and what the neighbors were telling them and so on. So I think the mouse is actually the invention of the infant interface, you point and you grunt, because that is developmentally the stage of communication of an infant. It cannot do much more. But otherwise, apart from caveman infant, even is spot on. You point and you grunt. That is basically the mouse interface. You point on something and you say, something more of this, and then you get a reaction and you can select something more. And there is a full paradigm of controlling computers with language, and that has happened when I wrote git init and pressed Control-C in emacs, meaning I just executed that command in the current directory. But calm down and relax. I will use my computer like I use my computer and show it to you and explain to you what's happening. Controlling with text is a journey you're invited to take, because it empowers you in your usage of a computer and makes you actually more versatile in what you're doing, and it's calming the nervous system down because you don't have so much eye-hand coordination. You have more, you can stay more focused to your thoughts and just write them. It is my way to work, and it's a way for many people to work who love language and also formal languages. But as I said, if you're used to Windows, it's not a requirement, it's an invitation. I will record, as I said, my own work and these introductions with this paradigm of controlling computers with language and the keyboard. But I will also repeat some recordings in other text editors on Windows, and controlling or doing the same things in Windows with a mouse if you are requesting those in the comments. So please do comment if you are asking for a certain software. But maybe this will be an inspiration for you to learn emacs. Maybe, maybe not. So, what are the requirements then for this work? The only real requirement is actually this collaboration software, Git. Again, you can use any text editor to write the text you see on the screen, but a last time advertising, if you're using emacs, you will have something like this nice collapsing of headlines that you can see here. So by pressing tab on the headline, you can expand the content of the headline or collapse it again. So these fancy things help a lot in your daily work to have an overview of your text files once they get a little bit longer. But back to the requirements. So Git is the basic requirement. So what is Git? Let's look at the directory. The directory is basically just the directory within your computer where this file orgit.org is located, and we executed git init before, which created this hidden directory .git with some technical files that are specific and managed by this Git software from Linus Torvalds. So Git and this hidden directory manages all the collaboration and all the versions that you create of text files. Git is a very basic Linux command or Windows command. It's available on all platforms, and there are several clients or software that make working with Git more convenient. I personally use Magit, Emacs again. It's not a requirement, but it is just lovely, so I will use Magit here in this demonstration, but also show you how you would do the same things with the Git commands in the terminal, like the git init above. So this is the Magit interface, and you can see that I have two untracked files. So I have a Git repository. In the beginning there was darkness, so it's empty, the repository, and I can see in Magit that I added a lot of lines, all the green lines with a plus in the beginning of the line. I added them, I stage some changes, and I write a short note comment on what actually I changed. So this one is the initial version. It's the introduction to how we're working here. Oops, I had caps lock on, so I will lowercase that with an emacs command. But now in this Magit we can see recent commits. We have a number, which is a hash number for this state of affairs, of files. And the initial version with the introduction, the master word is actually something that we go into more details later. It's the branch. This is the main thing. In order to exclude that file with the tilde at the end, we added to the git ignore, because we don't want to see all the backup files that Emacs creates implicitly in our Git. We can stage this new file git ignore, and instead of creating a new commit, we can even amend this change, this new file, to the old commit. So now we have this initial commit, initial version introduction with two changed files, the orgit.org with 79 lines of new content, and the git ignore file with 1 line of new content. So that is a lot. So what did we just see? What the fuck did just happen? Let's make it a little bit nicer. So let's recapitulate. What we did is we had some changes in this file orgit.org. We staged these changes. Staging means that we packaged these changes in some kind of way that makes a change set that is commentable or notable, that we can sign off on, that we can associate with the description and so on. So in these staged changes we added just this file orgit.org in the beginning, and then we amended the git ignore file for ignoring the Emacs backup files in our work, so we will not be confused by the display of them. And then we committed these changes and gave them a short description with a comment, right? These two steps we did with this Magit command, so we could have seen what was going on there. So we saw the green highlights of changed files and things like that, but we can do it even more basically in the terminal. So if you want to write it in the terminal, if you don't have Emacs, for example, you can do it by the staging you can do by issuing the command git add and then the file name or the file names, and there can be, you will find these commands like git add also in Git client software like Tortoise Git, which will definitely do a short video on if you are on Linux and very deeply in the mouse paradigm, which is totally okay. It's not your fault. You were just raised in that dependency on that crippling interface. So git add will be recognizable in TalkTraceGit. So you would right click then on the file and select add, and that would mean that you staged this file for the next commit. And you can repeat these commands, so you can create git add or git org, and then get git add git ignore. So you add a second file to the same commit, and then you confirm the commit, close the commit, and submit the commit to the repository, to your local repository, by running the git commit with -m, and then in quotes your message that is associated to that commit. We have also looked at the log of this Git repository containing only this one commit, and we have seen that a commit is comprised of an author and a committer, a commit message, and a change set containing several files. As long as you work on your own, that is basically all you really need to know. So let's recapitulate and look at the changes we made in the meantime. So you can see here that we prettified the offensive words a little bit, and we added the description of git add and git commit. We can create a new commit by pressing S here in the Magit client, but in other clients it's different. And we write a new commit message detailing that we added git add and git commit commands and have now 2 commits in our repository. Here you can see a nice display of such a log containing author and how long it's ago. That's basically it for this tutorial. So you have learned the absolute basics of what Git is doing, tracking changes in text files. The next steps will be that you publish your content in the internets for collaboration with multiple people. With Git, this collaboration is very nicely done, because changes that are done asynchronously on the same file are merged automatically, for example. And also in one of the next videos I will explain what is actually information in plain text, so what is actually represented in a text. This will start off with details on the markup format orgmode used in this tutorial. Thank you very much. Please like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Bye bye.